Glory to Jesus Christ. I don't know if you guys have ever in your life felt needy, afflicted, or tormented. Maybe you have. I'm sure you have. But today is a day of joy. A day when, in spite of whatever neediness or afflictions or torments we undergo, especially in this great fast, you know what I'm talking about? Nevertheless, today we celebrate. We celebrate the holy icons. We celebrate, as we heard St. Paul say in his letter to the Hebrews, the great cloud of witnesses that surround us. He says, and since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us persevere in running the race that lies before us. Today, in the holy icons whose triumph we celebrate, we are surrounded by all these holy saints who finished their race. They might have finished their race, but they're still doing something. They're cheering. They're cheering for you. They're cheering for me. They're praying for you. They're praying for me. They're cheering us on. And St. Paul says, therefore, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus and run the race that is set before you. We're all running a race now. We're all in the arena of the great fast. We're all athletes in training. And whether your training has been going great or not so great, keep your eyes fixed on him and keep running that race that lies before you. How do you do that? By faith. That's what we heard in the readings. By faith, Moses. By faith, he did this. By faith, he did that. By faith, Abraham. By faith, Gideon. By faith, Barak, Samson, Jephthah. By faith, David, Samuel, and the prophets. Faith is how they ran their race. And faith is how they won their crowns. And St. Paul also reminds us that Jesus himself ran the race. Jesus himself endured the cross. He says, for the joy that was set before him. Our faith, our trust, just like Jesus, is in the joy that is set before us. And so the whole theme of the readings today is joy. This is a time of joy. The hymns of the church talk about this joy in these words. The icons of the prophets, apostles, and martyrs, the sacred images of all the saints, adorn the heavenly Jerusalem, which shines with the spiritual beauty of the bridegroom and the spouseless virgin. Today is a day of joy and gladness, for the truth shines brightly. The Church of Christ is resplendent with the brilliance of the holy icons that have been restored, and peace reigns among the faithful. I think it's the conduct that also says things have been infused with beauty. Beauty and joy. That's why we run the race. That's why we keep our eyes fixed upon Jesus. And what a reward it is that we look forward to. St. John Chrysostom talks about this reward, and he says, what language, what intellect can represent that blessedness and virtue, that pleasure, that glory, that happiness, that splendor, that no eye has seen, no ear has heard, nor has the heart of man even imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. God freely bestowed on us so great favors: paradise, familiar relationship with God's own self, immortality, a life happy and free from cares. What will God not bestow on those who have labored and struggled so greatly and endured on God's behalf? That reward is tremendous and beautiful. The readings last night at Vespers from the Wisdom of Solomon say that those who have run the race, the souls of the just, are in the hands of God, and there shall no torment touch them. He says their hope is full of immortality. They shall be greatly blessed, because God tried them and found them worthy of himself. They shall shine. And he goes on to say that they shall receive a splendid crown, a beautiful diadem from the hand of the Lord, who will shelter them with his right hand and protect them with his arm. Boys and girls, dear friends, brothers and sisters, there is a splendid crown. There is a royal diadem waiting for you and for me at the end of this race. It doesn't matter how needy, afflicted, or tormented you find yourself. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, and you too will win the crown. Today, amongst the many things we celebrate the victory of these 40 holy martyrs of Sebastia in Armenia. You can see them all. And they're there in water, and I'll tell you why. This legion of 40 soldiers in the Byzantine Empire, they were all Christians. But the empire was divided between two rulers, one of whom was Christian, that's Constantine, and one of whom was not, whose name was Licinius, who was a nasty piece of work. As an aside, I will never forget my grandfather bought me a Roman coin and took me to a museum so we could find out more about it. And he said, "Oh, this emperor is Licinius. He was no good." And I went, "Oh, I wish he'd have been perhaps a better emperor." And I don't know what happened to that coin. But Licinius was a nasty piece of work, and he decided he didn't want Christians in his army. And he knew that this legion, all 40 of them, were dedicated, zealous, and holy Christians. So he tried to tempt them, ask them nicely to give up their faith. Come on, you want the respect of the emperor. The emperor is very rich. He can give you money and gold and prestige and power and position. And they weren't interested. Not even a little bit. So he thought, right, I tried the carrot and that didn't work. Let's try the stick and throw them in jail. So he threw them in jail. What do you think they did in jail? They prayed. They sang psalms. And they heard the voice of the Lord saying to them, "Persevere until the end, and you will be saved. Be brave and fear not, for you shall obtain imperishable crowns." That was what the Lord said to them, and it's also what the Lord says to us. Be brave and fear not, and you too will win imperishable crowns. So in the end, he had them thrown in an icy lake. It was the middle of winter, the coldest part of winter. And he had his guards throw them all into an icy lake, naked, so that they would freeze to death. But to torment them, he had a hot tub set up. A nice, warm hot tub on the side of the lake, and said, anybody who wants to give up this stupid Christian faith can get out of the lake, get out of the freezing icy cold, and go straight to my nice hot tub. How about that? And as they got so cold that they were turning blue. Their fingers, their feet, all of them were turning numb. One of them gave up, and he ran into the hot tub, but he was so cold that it killed him. And then there were only 39. But the guards who were there to keep them from coming out of the water, they were watching. And they saw the faith of these holy soldiers who were going to stay in the water, even though they knew they would die. And one of the guards, whose name was Aglaeus, was so impressed that he said, I too believe in this God that gives you such strength. I too believe in this God who gives you such hope of reward. And he saw crowns appearing over the heads of each of the 39. And somehow he had the faith, the hope, to take off his own clothes, strip down, and he went and took the place in the icy water of the one who had not been able to make it. He said, I too believe in your God. And we can see here in the icon Aglaeus being baptized, as in his own martyrdom he becomes a Christian. We know the names of each one of these holy 40 martyrs. They're all written down for us. And as you would expect in a list of names from soldiers serving in the Byzantine Empire in that part of the world, they're a mix of Latin names and a mix of Greek names. I think it's wonderful that we know their names. I want to read at least a few of their names to you, to remind you that these are real people, and that all of these saints and witnesses that you see around us are also real people. The 40 martyrs: Kyrion, Candidus, Domnus, Hezekias, Heraclius, Smaragdus, Eunochius, Valens, Vivianus, Claudius, Priscus, Theodoros, Eutychius, John, Xanthius, Helianus, Sicinius, Meliton, Aglaeus, etc., etc. All of these were real people who decided to look to the reward, to look to the crown, to persist through being needy, afflicted, and tormented, and to keep their eyes fixed upon Jesus and win the race. Aglaeus, a crown appeared over his head, and he too was received into the joy that was set before him. By faith, Aglaeus. By faith, each one of those 40 martyrs. By faith, Moses. By faith, Samuel and David and the prophets. But most importantly, you can add your name to that list. By faith, you. 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 By faith, me. Let us all put our names on that list of people who look to the reward, who look to the joy set before them, and keep their eyes fixed on Jesus, and from him win the crown at the end of our race. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Ave Maria.